3 insane night shift rules at the warehouse. You'll never believe haunting secrets uncovered. The warehouse loomed in the distance, a monstrous silhouette against the moonlit sky. A broken neon sign flickered ominously, casting unsettling shadows that danced along the cracked pavement. Inside, where the shadows clawed at the very edges of darkness, secrets whispered of unimaginable horrors. Workers said it was haunted. No one could prove it, but the eerie incidents made their skin crawl. There was the clock that never ticked past midnight. They said it froze just when the true terror began. Every night shift, you could feel the tension crackle like static in the air. Boxes shifted without warning, and distant whispers brushed past their ears, sending shivers down spines. Eyes darted nervously, watching the corners, waiting for something unseen. And then there was the rule about silence. The night crew had to remain quiet, no matter what happened. A loud noise, a scream, these could summon whatever dark force thrived in those shadows. It sounded crazy, but fear gripped their hearts. A few had run out screaming, claiming to see a figure in the rows of stacked boxes, watching them with cold, unblinking eyes. They'd laughed it off later, but the tremor in their voices revealed the truth: they were scared to death. Another bizarre rule. No one was allowed to touch the unmarked box. What was inside? Their imaginations spun wild theories. Something cursed. A message from the dead. They jumped at every creak and groan of the ancient warehouse, half expecting it to spring to life. And the last rule. Never look in the mirrors near the break room. Many said you'd see the real horrors lurking behind you, a glimpse into the other side. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Throughout the warehouse, whispers turned into nervous laughter, but deep down, they all felt it, the weight of dread clinging to their backs. It was like being trapped between two worlds. But what happened next shattered their calm. A sudden thud echoed from the back of the building, heavy and foreboding. They turned, heartbeats quickening. What could it be? Curiosity mixed with terror. Every night brought a new mystery, but this felt different. Something was about to be uncovered. The darkness was alive with secrets, and they were about to step into the unknown. The thud reverberated like a death knell in the cold, dank air. The crew stood frozen, breaths shallow. What the hell was that? Ryan's voice trembled, breaking the fragile silence. His eyes widened, darting from face to face, searching for an anchor in the rising tide of panic. Just a box falling over. Maria chipped in, though her shaky tone betrayed her. She took a cautious step toward the sound's origin, a dark, shadowy corner where the flickering light didn't quite reach. Each reluctant footfall seemed to echo beyond its intended path, but as they crept toward the back, the air grew heavier, stale, like the scent of old regrets clinging to them. That thick layer of apprehension was a palpable presence, wrapping around them like an unwelcome embrace. "Guys, why are we doing this?" David whispered, his fingers fidgeting nervously around the frayed edges of his uniform. He was the newest hire, and the weight of countless ghost stories began to bear down on him. The unmarked box loomed large in his mind, a mystery he had been told to avoid, yet here he was, drawn into something much darker. The thud resonated again. This time it sounded closer, louder. It beckoned to them, that chilling noise. A series of sharp breaths filled the air in a chorus of confusion and terror. It could be the wind. Someone suggested weakly, but the words fell flat. Or something worse, whispered a voice that sent chills down everyone's spine. It was Lila, the warehouse's most superstitious worker. Her white-knuckled grip on the flashlight reflected her racing pulse. "Remember what happened last week? When Tommy went back there alone. Tommy had stumbled out, panic-stricken, eyes wide like saucers, mumbling about shadowy figures that seemed to drift between stacks of boxes. His story had sparked the legends, igniting fears that had taken root deep within them, and now, with every step they took, those fears clawed at the edges of their minds. Ryan took the lead, propelled by raw adrenaline and stubborn determination. Let's just check it out. Maybe it's nothing. He pushed forward, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The beam wavered, and the shadows writhed, making it hard to tell what was real and what was an imaginative fabrication, but the deeper they went, the more the whispers returned, faint, haunting, curling around their senses. "Did you hear that?" David gasped, his heart racing, and the group halted, almost in unison. "It's just the wind," Ryan repeated, though he didn't sound convinced. The whispers seemed to coalesce into words just beyond comprehension, sending shivers through their backs. "I think we should." Maria started, but before she could finish, the beam from Ryan's flashlight flickered, illuminating a sight that made them all freeze in horror. There it was. The unmarked box. It stood precariously on the edge of a shelf, the very embodiment of their fears. It was slightly ajar, a dark, gaping void within that beckoned them closer. "Don't touch it." Lila shrieked, but it was too late. Before they could retreat, a swirling wind erupted as the box fully opened, enveloping them in an icy rush. In that heart-stopping moment, they were no longer just witnesses to chaos, they were unwitting participants in a game that had been set in motion long before they arrived. The lights flickered violently, and shadows began to swirl around them, whispering secrets they were never meant to hear. Suddenly, everything went dark. The only sound was the echo of their pounding hearts. What had they awakened? As the silence stretched on, an ominous feeling settled in. They were not alone. They would soon discover that some doors must never be opened. What awaited them in the darkness? Their breaths clouded in the sudden darkness, the crew felt the weight of dread settle uncomfortably on their chests. Each heart thumped a frantic rhythm of fear, escalating into a chaotic symphony. The panic was palpable, like a living creature stalking through the shadows, hungry for their terror. "Guys, we need to get out of here." David's voice cracked, breaking the spell of their paralysis. The darkness was a thick veil, smothering any sense of direction. It felt as if the warehouse itself was breathing, its walls pulsing with pent-up energies they couldn't comprehend. Lila's flashlight flickered, illuminating jagged edges of crates that loomed like sentinels in the night. "Stay close. Don't stray too far," she shouted, though her voice trembled. They shuffled together, each step down the narrow aisle echoing against the seemingly haunted metal shelves. Ryan reached for Lila's flashlight, tightening his grip. "Maria, can you check behind that rack?" They all turned to her, their eyes wide with fear. The silence pressed down on them, pressing sharper and sharper as they waited for her response. I don't think I can do this," she whispered, juggling the thin line between her courage and fear. But something compelled her, perhaps the choking darkness or the whispers that seemed to beckon her. "Just be quick," David urged, his voice trembling, as he gripped the edge of a nearby shelf. His heart raced, a wild thumping in his ears that drowned out everything else. She hesitated but stepped forward. Maria crept to the edge of the rack, the cold metal digging into her palms. She inhaled deeply, praying that whatever lay behind would remain unseen. That's when she heard it, a soft, staccato tapping, rhythmically echoing against the metal. It seemed to answer the shadows, to awaken something else in the depths of the warehouse. "Guys, do you hear that?" she gasped. "Yeah, let us get moving," Ryan insisted, but his voice faltered as a chill slithered through him. The tapping grew louder, more insistent, now sounding like fingernails scratching against wood. Panic twisted in their stomachs as they felt drawn both toward and repulsed from the ominous sound. They huddled together, watching as Maria's face turned paler than it had been moments before. What if it's Tommy?" she stammered, recalling his frantic ramblings. That memory echoed in their minds, tightening the grip of fear around their hearts. Suddenly, the warehouse lights flickered back to life, bathing the area in harsh fluorescent brightness. A collective gasp was released, revealing the chaos they had stumbled into. Boxes lay overturned, casting grotesque shadows across the floor. But just beyond the scattered remnants, an eerie calmness settled, and there, standing in the center of it all, was Tommy. His eyes wild, darting, as if he were still lost in the traumas of whatever he had witnessed. "You shouldn't have come," he gasped, flinching at their presence, backing away into the shadows. "It's awake." "What do you mean?" Ryan's voice rose above the chaos, demanding an answer while his gut twisted in fear. "Everything you're afraid of, it's real. I thought I was just there, but it's alive." Tommy's voice cracked, his panic breaking like a dam flooding the room. It struck them, harsh and chilling, a realization that echoed alongside the whispers that churned in the air. Lila moved closer, trying to pierce through Tommy's frenzy with calmness. "What did you see? Please, you have to tell us." But time felt suddenly cruel, as a low growl erupted from the depths of the shadows, slicing through their trembling hope. The darkness shuddered, stretching closer like a predator stalking its prey. The group shrunk back, pressing against each other, anxiety mounting with every thumping heartbeat. "Run!" David screamed, instinct kicking in. But as they turned to flee, the shadows began to encircle them, converting their retreat into a tangled web of despair. What was awakening from the blackness? And who would survive the night? In that moment, as the atmosphere thickened and shadows danced hungrily around them, a chilling thought swept over everyone in the crew. What if they were the ones who had awakened it? The growl reverberated through the warehouse, deep and menacing. It was a sound that clawed at their ears, a harbinger of dread that churned their stomachs. Fear ignited in their veins as the shadows morphed, forming grotesque shapes that twisted and writhed. "Where do we go?" Maria shrieked, her voice cracking under the pressure. "Back. Back the way we came." Ryan shouted, heart pounding, as he grabbed Lila's arm. But as they turned, the path they had come from seemed to flicker in and out of existence, transforming into a labyrinth of despair. Every step they took felt like stepping deeper into quicksand, dragging them into a pit of terror. David held blankly onto the light's beam, illuminating the others' wild, panic-stricken expressions. Each glance revealed the flicker of uncertainty. Who among them would break or stand firm when faced with the unknown? "Tommy! What do we do?" Lila yelled over the growing noise, her voice trembling. But Tommy just stood there, lost in his turmoil, eyes wide and distant as if he was staring right through them. "It knows you," he whispered, barely audible over the pulse of fear that echoed in the air. "It knows us." David shot back, frustration rising, desperation clawing at his throat. "What the hell does that mean?" Before Tommy could respond, the shadows coalesced into a towering figure. The outline was indistinct but outlined by malevolence, rippling darkness with eyes that glowed like dying embers. The crew stumbled backward, each heartbeat echoing in the thickening air. Panic soared as the towering entity shifted, its voice a low hiss that seemed to seep into their thoughts. "You've disturbed what was meant to remain silent. Don't just stand there." Maria cried, her voice threaded with urgency. "We need to," but the creature surged forward, and in that moment, time stretched. They could only feel the freezing chill as the air was sucked out of the room, wrapping them in a cocoon of despair. "Run!" David shouted again, an instinct deep within breaking free. As if ignited by his urgency, they turned on their heels, racing into the maze of crates and aisles, desperate to evade whatever horrors surged behind them. Lila dared a glance over her shoulder. The glowing eyes had shifted into a multitude like a horde of shadows hungry for their souls. "Keep moving," she panted, guiding them to a narrow opening between the crates. They squeezed through, barely escaping the tendrils reaching out. Rounding another corner, they skidded to a stop. Ahead stood a colossal shipping door and exit to the outside world. But the dread clung to them like a lingering fog. It could be trapped. Ryan murmured, glancing back into the darkness. "We have to take that chance," Lila exclaimed. "Now," David urged, pushing through the waves of uncertainty that threatened to drown them. They dashed toward the door, desperation fueling every frantic step. As they reached for the handle, the screech of metal against metal filled the air. The shadows pulsed closer. Just as their fingers brushed against the cold steel, suddenly and violently, the ground beneath them trembled. Then, it happened, a blinding flash lit up the warehouse, revealing the grotesque figures lurking in the corners, twisting in exasperation. The heartbeat of darkness recoiled as the light sliced through its veil, and then... silence. Did we make it? Tommy's question hung in the thick, charged air, but just as relief began to wash over them, a whisper slithered through the eerie quiet, a voice that seemed to echo from every shadow, "You can't escape what you've awakened." The adrenaline still coursing, they spun around to face the warehouse, expecting the shadows to rush back. What else had they awakened within those darkened halls? And would they find safety beyond those gargantuan doors, or confront an even deeper nightmare waiting in the light? As they pushed open the door and sunlight filtered in, the hint of more lurking chaos settled around them like an unshakable weight. Would the outside world be any safer, or had they doomed themselves to an even greater fate? The sunlight poured in like molten gold, washing over them, but it did little to ease the tension gripping their hearts. Instinctively, they squinted against the brightness, absorbing the stark contrast to the suffocating darkness they had just escaped. "Are we free?" Maria breathed, taking a shaky step into the light. But even as she said it, doubt etched deeper lines on her furrowed brow. "No." Tommy's sudden shout pierced the fragile calm, an echo of urgency. "You can't just walk out. It's not safe." David clenched his jaw, caught between disbelief and fear. "What do you mean? We can't just stay here. We have to go now." He felt the quiver in his hands, a recognition of the unseen threat looming over them. "Think. It knows where we are." Tommy's voice trembled, and for a moment, it seemed like his composure would crumble. "That thing in there, it has a grip on this place. If we don't keep moving, it'll come for us again." The air buzzed with the weight of panic and confusion. Lila pulled at her tangled thoughts, glancing back toward the warehouse entrance where shadows still loomed ominously. "So, what do we do? Wait for it to catch up, or get lost out here?" "Maybe we can find help or a way back in," Ryan suggested, though even he sounded unsure. The warehouse stood behind them, grim and impenetrable, as if it were a living beast waiting to pounce. With dread pooling in their stomachs, they turned away from the glowing doorway, stepping out into a world that felt oddly muted. The streets lay deserted, a dead silence wrapping around them like a smothering blanket. "Let us head toward the city," Lila suggested, pushing down her rising anxiety. "There should be people there." Just as they lurched forward, an earth-shattering crash echoed from behind them. They spun around. The colossal shipping door shuddered violently, a gash of darkness spilling through despite their brief escape. It's coming!" Maria screamed, her voice hoarse with fright. "Run!" David shouted, instinct overpowering reason as they took off down the street, their feet pounding against the pavement. Adrenaline surged through every fiber of their being, urgency igniting their limbs as they raced toward an uncertain safety, the once familiar buildings blurred by in a haze, and the sounds of their frantic breathing mixed with the fading roar of chaos behind them. Yet, no matter how fast they ran, a cold sense of dread lodged itself in their chests. What if it follows us?" Lila gasped, glancing over her shoulder. Her heart raced as she imagined shadowy tendrils creeping up behind. "Then we keep running," David insisted, determination spurring him on. "We won't let it catch us." But shadows were everywhere, even in the bright light of day. Their minds conjured threats, checked the corners between buildings, behind parked cars. Every flicker of movement twisted in their minds, warping the mundane into monstrous shapes. As they turned a corner, they crashed into a small, crumbling alleyway, panting and gasping for breath. The walls around them felt like they were closing in, suffocating them with memories of what had just escaped. "We need to regroup." "Think." Tommy stammered, eyes wild. "We need to access who we are if we want any chance of getting free from this curse." The words hung in the still air, and a sickening realization crept in. What if this darkness did know them? What if it wasn't just the shadows of the warehouse that were hunting them, but something deeper, more personal? Suddenly, David felt a chill sweep through him, bringing with it an overwhelming sense of vulnerability. What if it knows our fears? He whispered, dread pooling once again. The weight of the question crashed over them like a wave. They huddled together, trembling in the face of the unknown. Just then, a chilling laugh echoed through the alley, cold and malevolent. Oh, but it does. What had they unlocked? What part of themselves was now prey to the darkness they had unwittingly awakened? And what price would they pay to uncover the truth? The alley felt like a tomb, shadows curling around them as the chilling laugh echoed again, mocking and sinister. Maria pressed her back against the rough brick wall, her breath shallow. What does it want from us? She hissed, fear tightening her throat. I don't know. David shot back, his voice strained. But whatever it is, we can't let it get us. Not now. The bravado cracked like glass, revealing a deep well of dread beneath. Maybe confronting it is the only way, Lila suggested, her voice barely a whisper, quaking under the strain of their situation. If it knows our fears, maybe we can turn it against itself. Are you crazy? Tommy blurted, shaking his head. You want to invite it in? That's suicide. His eyes flicked around, as if he expected the darkness to seep in and swallow them whole, yet in the back of David's mind, the idea wrapped itself around his thoughts. Those fears, they were his, their own demons. They had been running from them all their lives. What if it has always been about facing our fears? He mused aloud, the words tumbling out before he could catch himself. Shut up. We need to focus on getting out. Ryan snapped, but the tension in his voice was unmistakable. They all felt it, a vibration in the air like anxiety before a storm. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the other end of the alley. Trash cans toppled over, their contents spewing across the pavement. The group jumped, hearts thudding in their chests. The sound dropped quiet, leaving only the panting of their breath and that sinister laughter hanging in the air. What if facing it is the only way to break its grip? David pressed, the determination growing in him. If it knows our fears, can we use that? Maybe we can find some kind of power in it. Some kind of strength. Lila shook her head slowly. But what if it pulls us into our worst nightmares? What if we can't come back? Better than just waiting around to be picked off, Tommy replied, clenching his fists. If we're going to die, let us at least go out fighting. Fine. The decision hung in the air like a blade, sharp and heavy. But we do this together. No running off. We face it together. David's voice rang with conviction, igniting a spark of unity among them. Despite the trepidation, they gathered their courage, hearts racing, inching back toward the mouth of the alley. The laughter twisted in the stillness, a dark symphony that taunted their resolve. Ryan's eyes widened as he spotted a flicker of movement in the shadows just beyond the alley. It's there. It's watching us. He grabbed Lila's arm, pulling her back protectively, but there was no turning back now. They had stepped into the ring, and the arena was fierce. Let us do this. David shouted, and they emerged from the alley, heading straight for where the darkness pooled thickest. The sun was still shining, but the shadows beneath it felt like a knife, ready to carve them apart. As they advanced, the laughter grew louder, a cacophony that enveloped them like a shroud. Shapes shifted in the hazy light, a kaleidoscope of fears manifesting, each form more grotesque than the last. Remember who you are. Tommy yelled, breaking through the noise of despair. We're stronger than this. We can conquer it. The shadows morphed and twisted around them, each distinct specter weaving their own histories. David felt a knot of terror coil in his gut as images of failure and loss danced just out of reach. But he couldn't let it win. Then, as if summoned by their united front, a creature surged forward, a grotesque mass with eyes filled with hunger. Face your darkness, children, it growled, its voice a whisper of nightmares. In that moment, David realized the truth: only by confronting their worst fears could they hope to escape from this endless maze. Their minds raced, position by position, preparing to fight themselves as much as the darkness around them, but would they find the strength or be swallowed whole? Their hearts pounded, the air thick with uncertainty. Were they ready? Would it be enough? As they stood poised to confront the coming storm, a blinding flash gripped their minds, revealing dark secrets long hidden. What truths would they uncover, and could they ever truly come back from the darkness? The creature lunged, and just as they made their stand, David heard a familiar voice whispering from deep within, "You're not just lighting the way, you're igniting the fire." Now they had no choice but to charge into the heart of their fears. But as they did, another cackle resounded, strong and unwavering. "You'll never escape your past, what awaited them on the other side." The creature surged forward, its mass undulating like a shadow in the fraying light. David felt the heat of panic rise within him, every instinct urging him to flee. Yet, amidst the chaos, a flicker of resolve ignited in his chest. They had to face it. "Stay together," he shouted, firming the grip on Lila's hand. The darkness loomed, swirling with memories and fears that clawed at their sanity. "Remember, it's just a reflection of us." The grotesque figure halted, its beady eyes narrowing, as if sizing them up. "Brave words," it hissed, the voice reverberating through the alley like shattered glass. "But fear has sharp teeth. What lies dormant within you?" A cold shiver ran down Tommy's spine. Visions erupted in his mind, a childhood stained with regret, moments lost to doubt. "Get out!" he roared, pushing it away, but the shadows crowded closer, relentless and clamoring. "Hold on, we are stronger." Lila's voice cut through the horror, shaking but clear. "It feeds on our fear. Don't give it power." David steeled himself, heart thundering as the memories began to coalesce into sharp, vivid shapes. He saw his younger self, giving up dreams for safety, bowing to expectations. "No more," he cried, stepping forward, willing to engage. The creature writhed, as if David's words stung. The cacophony transformed, a wall of anguished screams and whispers that enveloped them: doubt, anxiety, failure, guilt, all their voices merging into one terrible tide. "Join us," it hissed, slithering closer, the atmosphere thickening. "Let despair claim you. Fight it." Ryan shouted, breaking into a sprint, the momentum carrying him past the creature's grasp. "It's a lie." A fierce energy engulfed them, a pulse of unity igniting strength they didn't know they had. They were more than just trapped kids, they were a storm of resilience, each bolstering the other's courage, defying the shadows that sought to consume them. "Look it in the eyes," David urged, locking his gaze with the monster's haunting stare. "We are not afraid. You are just a shadow." For a moment, silence fell, a thick, suffocating quiet. The creature recoiled, confusion flickering across its grotesque face. With a furious roar, it lunged again, but this time, they did not flinch. Instead, they surged as one, holding hands tight, channeling their collective strength. "This ends now," David declared, heart soaring with a newfound purpose. But the misty darkness swirled faster, tendrils reaching for their throats, squeezing tightly. They could feel the weight of their worst fears pressing in, threatening to crush their resolve. Tommy staggered, his mind swirling with memories of inadequacy. "We're done for. Remember the fire." Lila shouted, her voice cutting through the panic. "We survived together." As their voices intertwined, a brilliant light erupted from their joined hands, flooding the alley in warmth. The shadows screamed, retreating as light collided with darkness, filling the space with a blinding glow. "Don't stop," David urged, pushing through the terror. "We can't let it win." The creature shrieked, writhing in agony as the light expanded, swallowing the darkness whole. In that moment, a profound truth washed over him: they were the authors of their own stories. Fear could be rewritten, but just as victory seemed within reach, the anguished laughter returned, cruel and mocking. "You think light conquers darkness?" It sneered, its form distorting into a swirling mass. "You only hide it." The world began to tremble, and David's heart sank as the ground heaved beneath them. Was this just the beginning? Would they truly escape the darkness or become trapped in a new layer of fear? Prepare for what lies ahead. It taunted as the ground opened up, a chasm yawning wide, threatening to swallow them whole. What awaited them at the edge of oblivion? Would they find liberation or something far worse lurking in the depths? The chasm yawned wider, a gaping mouth ready to devour them whole. David felt the earth shake beneath them, the vibrations growing louder until it was like a drumbeat in his chest. "Move!" he shouted, adrenaline surging as he pulled Lila and Tommy closer, trying to create a barrier against the impending void. Ryan was already racing ahead, his feet pounding against the cracked pavement, a beacon of defiance against the chaos. "Hold on." Lila's voice trembled as she glanced back at the creature, its twisted form writhing and morphing. "What if it pulls us down with it?" David's heart pounded in his ears. They were losing ground. "We can't let fear win." He yelled back, forcing himself to think. "If it's feeding off us, then we need to feel something else." Like a spark igniting in dry brush, hope flickered within him. He focused on the moment they fought together, the light ignited from their hands, the impact of their shared strength. "Remember why we started this? What made us come here? Our dreams, our friendships." Tommy froze mid-step, memories flooding his eyes. The campfire. The laughter. "We were happy." His voice contained both longing and determination. The ground quaked again, but something shifted within them. Collective memories surged forth, unleashed like a tidal wave. They weren't just kids fighting a monster, they were friends, bound by shared laughter and woven from countless adventures, dreams unbroken. "Let it burn!" David roared, lifting his hand toward the creature. "This darkness can't have us. We're more than our fears." The creature flinched, its form splintering as if trying to hold itself together against a windstorm. Shadows peeled away from it, revealing glimpses of fear that echoed familiar. It was their insecurities now stripped bare. "Fight it!" Ryan shouted, turning back to the group, eyes fierce. "Think about what you love. What you fight for. Focus on that." With that rallying cry, they forced their memories to merge into one burning point of clarity, a concentrated blast of light bursting forth as their hands intertwined. The darkness screeched, a horrible sound that shattered the air like a gunshot. Shadows recoiled, pulsating violently. David felt warmth radiating around them, pushing back against the suffocating cold. The shadows began to retreat, but just as darkness seemed ready to dissolve, the creature howled. "Foolish children!" It bellowed, the walls of reality bending. "You may have won this round, but you have not seen the depths of despair I can unleash." The chasm quaked fiercely once more, rising maliciously, as if trying to take them all into its depths. One last scream echoed through the alley, filled with terrible promise. "Now!" Lila urged, eyes wide with conviction, "jump together." Unyielding resolve surged among them. United, they launched themselves forward as one, leaping no time to look back. Time stretched as they felt themselves falling, the echo of screams trailing behind them as the world above faded into black, but just as the darkness threatened to envelop them, a blinding light exploded like fireworks all around, illuminating their descent. What was on the other side of this leap? Freedom? New challenges? These questions swirled in David's mind as they fell deeper, and then, there was silence, deeper than the abyss. What awaited them in this new world? The light enveloped them, swirling colors dancing as they tumbled through nothingness. It felt like an endless plunge, where time lost all meaning. David squeezed his eyes shut, the sheer force of the light creating a strange pressure around him. Would they land safely? Or would they be swallowed by this luminescent tempest forever? Suddenly, they crashed onto a hard surface, a jarring thud echoing around them. David opened his eyes to find himself lying on cold, uneven ground. He pushed himself up, disoriented, heart racing. The brightness faded, leaving them in a dim, eerie twilight, shadows flickering on walls that stretched impossibly high. "Is everyone okay?" Ryan's voice broke through the silence, filled with urgency. Lila and Tommy groaned as they pulled themselves to their feet, brushing dirt off their clothes. "What is this place?" Lila whispered, glancing around, eyes wide with wonder and fear. David forced himself to stand, scanning their surroundings. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something metallic. In front of them, a series of massive doors stretched out, each one adorned with intricate carvings that seemed to pulse with a strange energy. "Look!" Tommy pointed, his voice quaking. The doors weren't just decorated, they were alive, whispering secrets in an ancient language David couldn't grasp. Tendrils of mist snaked around their bases, beckoning them closer. "What do you think they lead to?" Tommy asked, his nervousness palpable. "We need to find a way out," David said, steeling himself. "We can't dwell here. Remember what we faced before." As if in response, the shadows around the doors quivered, revealing glimpses of faces contorted in terror. The whispers grew louder, every syllable a warning, a lure. "Stay away!" David shouted, a chill creeping down his spine. "We want to become a part of this. Do you feel that?" Ryan interjected, his voice hushed. "There is something wrong with the energy here. It's like it's feeding off us." Tension mounted among them, thick and suffocating. David took a step forward, almost instinctively, a part of him desperately wanting to unravel the mystery of the doors. But another part screamed for caution. "Stay close," Lila urged, grasping Tommy's hand tightly. With hesitant steps, they moved toward the nearest door. David reached out, fingers brushing against the cold wood. Excitement thrummed through him, mixed with a fear he couldn't shake. "What if we're meant to open it?" Lila whispered, hope and dread swirling in her expression. "Or what if it's a trap?" Ryan replied, his brows furrowed. The whispers erupted into a cacophony, a dissonant chorus that quickened David's pulse. "Let us do this," he urged. The four of them stood together, hearts racing in unison like a drum. They needed to act. They couldn't let fear paralyze them again. Heart to heart, they nodded at each other. Tommy wrapped his fingers around the handle. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. As they pulled the door open, a blast of frigid air erupted, swirling around them, peeling away skin and knocking the breath from their lungs. And there, standing in the doorway, was a figure cloaked in shadows, eyes glowing fiercely. "What comes next will test you beyond anything you've faced before," it rasped, voice echoing as if from a vast distance. "Welcome to the trials of night." David felt a rush of adrenaline. He looked at his friends, determination igniting within him. "We're ready for whatever comes." But he couldn't silence the doubt creeping in. What did the trials of night truly mean? What horrors lay in wait? And as the figure moved closer, darkness coiling around it, David realized that they had only just begun to scratch the surface of their greatest battle. Outside the doorway, the shadows swirled like a tempest, ready to swallow them whole. Would they survive the trials? Would they find their way back? With every heartbeat, the air thickened with anticipation, and they had no choice but to step forward. But what awaited them beyond the threshold? Suddenly, the ominous figure before them began to dissolve into shadows, twisting and curling like smoke before their eyes. The air burned cold, tingling with an unsettling energy that sent shivers down their spines. David tightened his grip on Lila's hand, their shared fear igniting a palpable determination. "Stay together," he shouted, feeling the pulse of urgency thrumming around them. The whispers climbed, rising to a fever pitch as if the very walls around them fed off their tension. "We can't let it consume us," Ryan declared, stepping forward with an unexpected bravado, as though he could hold the darkness at bay with sheer will. As the figure faded completely, they saw the path ahead illuminated by a strange glow, leading into a vast, winding corridor lined with doors, each more magnificent and terrifying than the last. It stretched infinitely, every step echoing their uncertainty. With a collective breath, the four of them stepped forward, eyes scanning the architectural madness surrounding them. "What are the trials of night?" Maria whispered, her voice tight with apprehension. "Only one way to find out," David replied, forcing hope into his tone. They had faced the shadows before, and now it was time to dig deep within, not only for their survival but for the dawn of understanding. As they walked, shadows seemed to cling to their legs, whispering secrets they couldn't decipher. Doubt crept into their minds, conflicting with the powerful resilience they had found together. "Remember what we faced back at the warehouse," Tommy reminded. "Facing our fears is the only way." Suddenly, the corridor burst into chaos. Door after door swung open, revealing glimpses into their past moments of sorrow and delight alike. David found himself staring into a door that pulsed with a golden hue, depicting a family campfire. He felt warm memories flooding back, laughter, security, a stark contrast to the cold chaos surrounding them. "Do you see it?" he urged. "It's our memories. The power we draw from them." Encouraged, the others looked around, and one by one, they began to face their own doors. Lila stepped confidently toward a door where she could see herself at a graduation ceremony, beaming with pride, yet shadows hung over her shoulders, whispering doubts. "You didn't deserve it." "No," Lila yelled, pushing those doubts back. "That was mine to achieve. I'm stronger." The shadows recoiled as her voice rang clear, and she felt warmth wash over her, bolstering her resolve. The dark whispers turned to a whispering howl, retreating like a tide. Next, Tommy approached a door that revealed childhood memories, the loss he always felt echoing around the nightmares where he ran with shadows behind him. "I can't run anymore," he said firmly, stepping beyond the threshold of fear. "I will face it." With each fear defeated, they found themselves growing stronger, united against the night that sought to unravel them. As they pressed deeper into the tests, a sense of purpose coursed through their veins. Just as they thought they had a handle on their growing power, they encountered the final door at the end of the corridor. The wood glimmered, dark and impenetrable, whispers vibrating with a chilling intensity. It felt more powerful than the rest, carrying an energy that struck fear into their hearts. "Is this it?" Maria whispered, her brow knit with worry. "Whatever lies behind this door, we face it together," David urged, his heart steadying as he reached for the handle alongside his friends. "On 3. 1. 2. 3. Together, they flung the door open and stepped into an expanse of light. A figure stepped forward from the blinding glow, revealing a towering presence, the embodiment of all their darkness, their fears manifesting here. It spoke, voice a mix of authority and malice. "You think you are ready to confront your greatest despair? You do not know the true depth of your past." A chill grasped them, but David felt it crack, sensing the strength they had accumulated through their trials. "We are ready. We've faced everything you could throw at us. Our fears have made us stronger." With a deep breath, the group held hands tightly, channels of fierce energy flowing through one another. As the dark figure began to close in, they summoned the memories, the laughter, the pain, and the love that had shaped them. "Let the light conquer the darkness," they shouted in unison. In that moment, an explosion of unity and truth rippled outward, shattering the air and consuming the shadows swirling around. Light ignited from their hearts, expanding outwards, pushing back the creature that had loomed so ominously. The darkness howled, dissipating into nothingness as its shape writhed and fell apart, leaving them bathed in a brilliant glow. The trials of night had been overcome, and the truth was woven into their very beings. Together, hand in hand, they stepped into the bright brilliance ahead, breathless with the exhilaration of victory. It was not the end of the darkness. They knew this journey would continue, but for now, they were free. They were standing on the edge of dawn, light spilling across their future. As they faced what lay ahead, the warmth of hope flooded their hearts, ready for whatever lay beyond. And in that moment, under the golden arch of possibilities, they knew, they could face anything together. But remember, this is not just a story. This is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, because every like counts. Flood the comments below with your reactions and theories about David and his friend's incredible journey. Your voice matters, and above all, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.